from Transylvania University. This is Hey Kentucky's Decision 2018 Town Hall.
Welcome to this special edition of Hey Kentucky. I'm Lee Cruz, and we're coming to you today from the Cal-Gill Center here at Transylvania University's campus, where we have convened a town hall with congressional candidate Amy McGrath. And we offered the same opportunity to Congressman Andy Barr. He declined. Now we're going to get questions from voters here in the 6th District, along with our host, Matt Jones. So let's begin this town hall forum with congressional candidate Amy McGrath.
Thanks everybody for coming to this. We are really appreciative on some short notice to get our town hall situated. We have a number of voters here who have questions, so rather than me yap anymore, Amy, if it's all right with you,
Absolutely.
We'll get started and ask some questions. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Flor Musinho, and I'm from Lexington. I was honestly just wondering how you will get more involved with the Latino community, especially with the individuals who are undocumented or may have DACA and want to pursue higher education, but might fear some form of resistance.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've served with people from all walks of life as a United States Marine, black, white, Latino, you name it. And so we're all Americans. And so especially when it comes to the DACA situation, for me, these are folks who came here under no fault of their own. And this is the only country they know. And they're Americans too. And for me, we need to find a way to make sure that they become full citizens. And that's something I want to work on should I be elected to Congress. And so that's kind of my approach, But in terms of the Latino community, look, the job of a representative is going out and meeting with all types of communities in all areas. And that's why I'm running a campaign that goes out to all 19 counties in this district, that has an office in all 19 counties of this district, and that this is part of that. So I want to reach out to all communities and listen. That's the biggest part of that. Thank you for your question.
Your opponent has said a couple times in ads about your position, has said that he accuses you of favoring open borders. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I fought for my country for 24 years, and I fought to defend the borders that we have. So the idea that I would be for open borders is absolutely ridiculous and slightly offensive. And it's part of the problem with our political system when you have one side that continually feels like they have to lie. So, but with regards to our borders, look, I went down to the border this past summer. I'm somebody that wanted to understand both sides of this issue because I was frankly tired of the labeling on both sides. So, I believe in strong borders. I do not think the idea of a brick and mortar wall is something that we should be doing in this country. When I talked to the ICE agents and the Border Patrol agents when I went down to the border, even they thought a wall was not good, that it wouldn't really stem any of the problems that we have. It's a 9th century solution for a 21st century problem. That said, what we ought to do is, and what they're asking for, is better technologies like P3 aircraft, that's surveillance aircraft that can see all of our border, like UAVs, drones, that sort of thing. We can secure our borders, and we need to. We need to know who's coming into our country. Who would not want to know who's coming into our country? We have to do that. At the same time, the mid-grade estimate for a brick and mortar wall, the way that Trump is proposing, the mid-grade estimate is $40 billion. $40 billion. You know what we should be spending $40 billion on? When I go out to Wolfe County, you know what they want 1 mile outside of Campton? Running water. Running water. When I go to Lawrenceburg and I talk to the city officials there, they need to upgrade their sewer system. It's 75, 80 years old. It needs to be upgraded. This is the type of infrastructure that we need. There was a study by Brookings that came out about a month ago. Brookings is a think tank. And that study said that you could bring broadband to 98% of America. 98% of America for $40 billion. It's the exact same amount as this proposed wall. What are we doing? What are we doing? These are the types of things that we need infrastructure in our country to compete globally in an economy that's going to work for everybody. And that's what I want to push for. And that's why I don't think a wall is all that smart. And there's lots of other ways we can secure our border and do what these Border Patrol agents and ICE agents are asking us to do.
All right, we have another question. Please say your name and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Jake Hawkins, and I live in Georgetown, Kentucky. Yeah. I've watched your campaign, and the defining feature is definitely your military experience. I was reviewing your website and your policy positions on everything from climate change to sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Somehow managed to tie back to your military experience. Now, as someone who's a little bit weary of the never-ending wars in the Middle East, how can I know, and other Kentuckians know, that you won't first try peaceful measures before resulting back to war and military?
That is an awesome question, Jake. And look, my life experience as an adult has been defined by my military experience. That's what I did. I left home at 18 and went into the military. But I'll tell you this, you know who are the people that least likely want to go to war? Veterans. People who have been to war. And so, I look back at some of the things that we've done as a country in the last 17 years, look at like Iraq, for example. And boy, I wish we had more people in the room who had actually fought in wars before we decided to jump into that one. And so, as I look at what types of leadership we need in this country, I think we actually need more veterans. We have the lowest percentage of veterans in Congress in recent history, and it shows. Veterans, by and large, not all the time, but by and large, tend to put the country above their political party, which is the defining theme of my campaign. I really think we need that right now in our leadership. And veterans have proven that they can do that. They can work on a mission. I never in the Marine Corps did I ever say, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? If you're a Republican, I can't work with you. No, we're Americans first. And so, yes, my military experience defines who I am, but I've also fought in the complex wars that we've been fighting in. And I understand, probably more than a lot of people, that dropping more bombs isn't the answer, from one who did it. It's very complex, and I think we need people that really understand that. So thank you so much for that question.
All right, what's next?
Hi, I'm Alicia Sneed, and I'm from Lexington. And my question sort of goes with the one that you just answered before. Right now in Congress, nothing is getting done. People are in their particular tribes, they're staying in their tribes, they're not communicating. We've had 2 speakers of the House basically decide to throw up their hands and leave.
Yep.
How are you going to get the things you've talked about during your campaign done? How are you actually going to be able to go across the aisle and get a bill passed?
Thank you for the question. It gets to the heart of my candidacy. It's why Amy's here. I believe our system is broken. I believe that is complete dysfunction. I saw it in my students. My last duty assignment at the Naval Academy was teaching midshipmen and cadets. And it's one of the reasons I'm running, because they had lost faith in their political leadership to get anything done. I think it starts with leadership, and I think it starts with having different kinds of people. And this is the type of campaign I've tried to run. Somebody who's substantive, who doesn't label the other side. You know what? I'm a proud Democrat. My husband's a Republican. And it's okay. We get along. And I was an independent for 10 or 12 years. And that's okay. And it's about getting people into Congress who, one, are substantive, and that's what I've tried to do in things like my health care plan, things like my economic plan, money in politics, how to get money out of politics plan. Those are an example. Going out to all the 19 counties is another example, but the biggest one is the type of campaign I'm running and not slinging mud at the other side. Because I'm tired of it, and it's not how we get things done. So you've got to have leaders that go there and walk the walk and refuse to lie about the other side. I think that's the most important thing, and we can start there.
Do you think that's doable? I mean, I sense more pessimism about that ability to work with the other side than I've ever sensed. Do you think it's doable?
I think there's a lot of pessimism out there, Matt, and I think a lot of Americans agree. But you know what? We can throw up our arms and we can say there's nothing we can do. But I'm not the kind of person that does that. I'm the kind of person that says, no, our country's better than this. I fought for my country. I had friends who died in serving our country, and we can be better than what we are right now, and I'm going to work to do that. And my side doesn't always have the right answers. You know, the Democrats don't always have the right answers, the Republicans don't have the right answers. What I'm tired of is the side standing and saying, well, they're always wrong, and lying about the other side all the time, and we're always right. That's just not who we are. Look, if you line up 20 of my issue stances with what each individual thinks, we're probably going to agree on some things and disagree on some things. You can't put Americans in a box. We're trying, as politicians, I think too many of them are trying to put people in a box. You know, liberal is this, conservative is this. Look, I don't care about liberal values. I really don't. I don't care about conservative values. I care about American values. And that's what we need to get back to. But I do think it's possible. If I didn't think it weren't possible, I wouldn't be running.
Who's next?
I'm Deborah Alexander from Lexington. Would you support economic sanctions against Saudi Arabia if evidence emerges that U.S. resident and Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi was murdered? And it's really a question also about what should be that balance between our military and our economic interest overseas, but also our moral authority, our values?
Thank you, and that's a great question, Deborah. Thank you so much. This is a question between those two. I think, you know, what happened here, at least the evidence and what we're seeing is very disturbing. The fact that we have a president who seems to be unwilling to stand up for American values, freedom of the press being a big one. Look, this has happened over and over and over again with this president, unfortunately. With regards to this issue, I think there are some things that we can do. You know, we sell, as you know, a lot of weapons to Saudi Arabia, and maybe we ought to look at that. Maybe we ought to say, hey, you know, this is completely against our values, and I'm not sure I have a whole lot of faith right now that the Secretary of State is really getting to the bottom of this. Our intelligence community is saying one thing, the president is saying another. Look, folks, we've seen this game before. We've seen this before, right? We saw it with Vladimir Putin and Russia getting involved in our elections, where we have the intelligence community saying overwhelmingly, our U.S. intelligence community saying one thing, and the administration or the president saying another. So I think the part that I can control is getting the Congress and being a voice that can stand up to the executive. And I'm really concerned about the fact that we have an incumbent in this seat who is unwilling to do that. Unwilling to do that because the executive is a member of his political party. And it gets right back to the heart of why I'm running. It's let's put our country first, and our political party second or third or fourth. The country and Kentucky and the people here first. So.
On Saudi Arabia specifically, the last 3 presidents have really had close relationships, even though there's some evidence that there were Saudis involved on 9/11. I mean, on Saudi Arabia specifically, do you feel like the United States relationship is not what it should be?
The Middle East is very complex, and I've done several tours there. You have very much a proxy war going on right now between Iran and Saudi Arabia and Yemen. You know, Saudi Arabia it's sometimes we're connected with them in order to balance out Iran. So I think we have to be really careful about that relationship, and it's, you know, I think we still need to maintain a relationship. That said, we also need to stand up for American values. And this is the problem with foreign policy. For me, what I've learned in my time in the Marine Corps is it can't just always be about economic interests for America. We have to have a moral compass. That is what we stand for. That is powerful, and it's what makes America powerful just as much as our 10 or 12 aircraft carriers. It's our values. That's why countries want to partner with us. That's why NATO is so tight, because it's not about military, the military alliance so much as it's a values alliance. We have to stick with our values as much as we can, but it's complex.
Who's next?
Hi, my name is Christy. I have a child with heart disease. I have dilated cardiomyopathy. So my question considers not only the 6th district, but pulling a little bit from my roots of eastern Kentucky as well. There are Kentuckians in Pike County, for example, who have obstacles in obtaining adequate medical care. There's a city named Phelps that does not have an ambulance service. Mm-hmm. So keeping in mind the Affordable Care Act and pre-existing conditions, where do you want to see the health care of this nation progress to?
Yeah, thank you, Christy. And This is the single most important issue that I talk to people in all 19 counties of this district, particularly people with children who have pre-existing conditions and people who have pre-existing conditions themselves. You know, probably part of this dysfunction that we have in our system right now, I think one of the main problems with this is we can't overcome the dysfunction in order to progress with our healthcare system. Everybody knows that premiums are rising. Everybody knows that the cost of healthcare is going up. We had a system prior to the Affordable Care Act, whereas if you had pre-existing conditions, you were scared, right? I mean, you just rolled the dice. And you didn't know if insurance was going to be able to cover you or not. I don't think we should go back to that. That's why I want to fix the Affordable Care Act and not throw it away. To me, you know, Congressman Barr, my opponent, talked for years about how the Affordable Care Act was so bad. Well, look, folks, I got to tell you something. I've been on the campaign trail for a while now. There's not a single day that goes by where somebody doesn't come up to me and say, the Affordable Care Act saved my life, or I was able to get insurance. I have a pre-existing condition. I have classmates of mine who have come up to me and say, I'm a lifelong Republican. Please don't take away the Affordable Care Act. And so, I mean, this is a bread and butter issue. And we can argue about taxes and all kinds of other stuff, but this comes down to people's lives. And folks who have pre-existing conditions, we should not be throwing them under the bus. Okay? So what do I want to do? I want to do things that, one, shore up the Affordable Care Act, not throw it away. All right? Because it has done a lot of good. It took our uninsured rate in Kentucky from about 20% to about 5%. That's pretty good, okay? Now, it didn't get costs under control, so we got to work on that. So how do we do that? Well, a couple of things that I like, a Medicare buy-in plan for those who are 55 and older. Lots of people like Medicare, and I think you ought to be able to buy into a system that everybody likes, not going to throw you off, all right? Also, it would take some folks out of the Affordable Care Act exchanges, which are maybe a little bit higher risk because of their age, shoring up the Affordable Care Act exchanges a little bit more. Second thing I like is what's called a public option. Is that socialized medicine? No, it's not. It's a public option. It's an option. So basically, under the Affordable Care Act exchanges, you have a choice of private insurers right now. I propose, in addition to those private insurers, you ought to have the choice of Uncle Sam, kind of like what I have as a military retired officer. You can choose Uncle Sam if you want. If you want to stick with your private insurer, you can choose that. Now, how would that bring down prices? Because now the for-profit insurance companies would have to compete for a non-profit government plan. They'd have to bring their prices down. And that's what it comes down to. We have to work on getting all Americans affordable and accessible health insurance and health care in this country. And it really stems back to, and I should have said this up front, it really stems back to, do you believe health care is a right? I do. I fundamentally believe health care is a right that all Americans should have. So I thank you for your question, and because it's so important not to throw people with pre-existing conditions under the bus.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Corey Dillon. I'm from Nicholasville. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for your service.
Appreciate that, Corey.
My question is, as a registered Republican that is not completely satisfied with the direction of the Republican Party, you are on record as saying you won't vote the party line. What are some specific examples of issues that you will vote against your party?
Great. And thank you. And for the question, my husband is also a Republican, and I've served with many Republicans in my day. You know, my party doesn't have all the answers. I disagree with a lot of Democrats at the national level that think we ought to abolish ICE, for example. That's a law enforcement agency. We need to enforce the laws that we have in our country. To me, that's a knee-jerk reaction. So that's just one example. I'm what you might consider a national security Democrat. I believe that we need to have a strong national security. I believe that we ought to have a strong military. I believe if we're going to send our military overseas, we need to fund them appropriately. So that's maybe another, I don't know, issue that I would be, you know, against maybe the national party. But I will tell you that, you know, to me, it's about representing the people, and this is a district that is very diverse. The congressman who is in this seat right now votes for his party 97% of the time. How in the world can you represent such a diverse district and vote for your party 97% of the time? And to wrap it in to when you get there, it's also before you get there. It's how you get there. So my campaign is funded by people, okay? Not special interest groups, people. And so I'm also not tied to the Democratic National Party. Remember, they didn't really want me to run. They supported somebody else. So guess what? I don't owe anybody anything. And I love that, because now I can just represent the people and do what I think is best for America and for Kentucky.
Can I ask you one Republican issue that you've taken some criticism for being against? Did you agree with the tax cuts that were given that, and the Andy Barr and Donald Trump have trumpeted when they were here?
Yeah.
Did you disagree with them? And for some middle class Kentuckians, that's given them a tax cut. Do you disagree with it?
Well, I'm not opposed to middle class tax cuts. What I'm opposed to are tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% and corporations who are receiving record profits in this recovery. And I mean, in addition to the fact that this tax scam that was pushed through by Andy Barr and by the Republicans adds $2 trillion to our national debt. Now, Congressman Barr ran on, if you go back to 2010 and 2012, he ran and he said his number one priority, number one, was guess what? The national debt and deficit. And the only major piece of legislation that his party and he passed was adding $2 trillion to the national debt. And I would actually be in agreement with the 2010 Congressman Barr or 2012 Congressman Barr in that I'm very worried about our debt and deficit. I think it's a problem. But I'm not, who would be opposed to tax cuts? Nobody is opposed to them if we can afford them. But I am certainly opposed to tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% and corporations who don't need it. Meanwhile, blowing up our deficit, which is now 17%, I think, higher than what it was last year. I mean, this is irresponsible, and that's why I'm against that bill.
Who's next?
My name is Woody Higginbotham. I live here in Lexington.
Okay.
Many government subsidies for fossil fuels began as early as the 1920s and were written with no expiration date. The solar tax credit, or the ITC, is set to reduce in the year 2020 and in 2022 go to zero for residential solar installments. Moreover, Congress has allowed the electricity production tax credit, or the PTC, to expire numerous times and have lowered the credit over the years. Renewable energy employs more people, is greener, and more sustainable. Will you stand up to the current administration and what is popular here in Kentucky to promote and renew sustainable energy policies like the ITC and the PTC?
Thanks for the question, Woody. Look, renewable energy is the future. And, you know, the sad part about this whole thing is that this shouldn't be a partisan issue at all. Coal, as an example, from Kentucky has been used as a political football for years. And nobody's being honest about the future. For climate change is real. It's not an alternative fact, it's a fact, okay? For some strange reason, we have one major political party in our country that is denying science. I don't know why that is, but it scares me. And if you don't believe me, believe all of the heads of all of our military services, because they are all planning for this to happen, for climate change. I believe it's a national security and international security concern. That said, I'm very concerned that we as a country are giving the Heisman to things like renewable energy and not embracing it. And what we're doing by doing that is we're ceding power to China, that is taking over the technology in renewables right now, and that is where we need to go. You know, I want to be somebody that goes to Washington, though, and advocates for investment in our region, because with coal, we powered this country. We have hardworking coal miners and folks, that is their livelihood, and we're proud of that. I'm proud of that. It powered our country, you know, and we need to take care of that, of our region. And so the best thing that we can do is plan for the future. Let's not lie to people. I mean, even folks in the coal industry are talking about the future. And as leaders of our country, we can't look the other way and say all the jobs are going to come back. I think we may not want coal to go away, but we need to plan if it does.
But is there a future in coal?
I think there is. And that's why if you read my economic plan, which is like 32 pages long, I talk a lot about electric cars and how we're going to move into those technologies. And here in Kentucky, we can power a lot of that through coal. What I'm advocating for, which is different than most candidates, is let's have a plan. Okay, we had this issue with tobacco in Kentucky, where both sides, left and right, used it as a political football for years. And then what happened the day after it went away? The tobacco farmers were left in the cold because nobody had a plan for the future. So I'm looking at, hey, we may not want to go to war against North Korea. You better believe our military has a plan for it. That's all I'm saying. Let's have a plan to diversify. And renewables, it is the wave of the future. It is what we're going to do. Look, the U.S. Navy went from sailing ships to coal power ships in the 1800s. Then they went from coal power to oil in the 1900s. Then they went from oil to nuclear power. And guess what the U.S. Navy is doing right now? They're moving to renewables. And everywhere in history along the way, there were naysayers. There were people who said, oh, we're not going to change, can't change. It's going to happen. It's more efficient. Our military is on the forefront of renewable technologies. Why? Why does the Army and the Marine Corps care about this? I'll tell you why. Because if they can get rid of the fuel convoys and go to renewable tactical forward operating bases, they will save people's lives. Most of our casualties overseas, they don't happen in firefights. They happen with fuel convoys. And so it's our military knows that this is happening. What I'm concerned about is our politicians are holding us back. So I appreciate the question, but I get it. That's really my answer to you.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, again, thank you for your service. My name is Paul Raines, and I'm a moderate conservative, maybe even a cynical when it comes to politics, apolitical throughout most of my life, probably. But here lately, there's a lot of concerns, and the one concern that my wife and I both have had is on one of the negative attack ads, it has your voice saying you're as far left and more progressive than anyone in the state of Kentucky. And as a moderate conservative, that gives me a little bit of angst about possibly swinging my vote over.
I get it. Thank you for the question. I also consider myself, I was apolitical for most of my adult life until about a couple of years ago. That's why I was an independent. I'd love for the other side to release the whole tape of that because they love to take things out of context. And I don't know, I don't remember, I've talked a lot in public. I don't know what specific issue, but that comment was about a specific issue. And if they would play the whole thing, I bet you what you'll find is that at the end of that, I said I was more progressive than anyone who's ever won this seat on a particular issue. And again, I would love the other side to say that. I consider myself someone who I believe I'm conservative on some issues, and I believe I'm more progressive on some issues. You just can't put people in a box, and of course that's what the other side is going to want to do. But I would say, you know what? Look at my policy stances on my website. Do those seem radical? I'd say that's the best thing to tell you, sir. I appreciate that.
So you think it's likely on an issue? Is there a particular issue that you think maybe you're more progressive than most of Kentucky on?
Well, I'll tell you that the last person who was a Democrat that had this seat was Ben Chandler. And he took money from the NRA. And I'm not. Now, I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. I was a Marine, so you know that I've shot just about everything you could possibly shoot, right? But I'm also a mom. And I am very, very concerned about special interests in our country. And that is why I came out of the documents that I've published. I have one that totally goes after special interests and why that's hurting America. And it's, one of the reasons I decided I'm not going to take money from the gun lobby and manufacturing lobby. So that may be the reason, although I would love it if they would just play the whole thing, because I know where I stand and I know who I am. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jenny Bolander from Lexington, Kentucky. I'm a teacher, so my question's a little bit about school safety. My parents live in Lawrenceburg. Given what happened this past week in Lawrenceburg, what are your stances? What would you do at the federal level to help promote more school safety so that we don't have these mass shootings of children in schools?
Yeah, thank you. My father was a lifelong teacher, and my brother and my sister-in-law are also teachers. So I thank you for the question. I thank you for what you're doing. I think, by the way, how we're treating teachers in Kentucky is not so good right now. I'll just leave it at that. But in terms of school safety, I'm very concerned too. I'm a mother of 3 small children. And I think that we need to tackle this problem by looking at gun violence as an epidemic in this country. It is. And so I think, and I'm a reasonable person, I feel like I'm reasonable. We should be doing things that most Americans think we should be doing, like better background checks, universal background checks, studying gun violence as a health issue with the CDC and the NIH, making sure that if you are on a terrorist no-fly list, you shouldn't be able to go in without any restrictions and buy a weapon. These things to me are not radical. These are common sense. And what stops us from doing that is the gun manufacturing lobby. And so I think and most gun owners, by the way, are for these things. So I think we ought to do those things first and go from there. Why? Because it's just reasonable, it's the right thing to do, and it gets back to the heart of my candidacy and getting somebody into office who is not your standard politician, who doesn't cow down to the special interests, who funds her campaign off of people. 90% of my donations are $50 or less. Who am I going to work for? 90% of my donations are $50 or less. I mean, that's what this is boiled down to. That's how we fix the problems that in our country. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael. I come from right next door to Wolfe County in Pound County. Mm-hmm. I'm proud to say I'm a first-generation student almost on every level. And while our teachers have tried their best to do with what resources they have, it's no secret that inequality and inequitable access to quality education plagues places like Bath County,
yes,
Wolfe, and Powell. Yes. What plan would you have, if elected on the federal level, to ensure equitable access to quality health education for K-12 and then for college and professional or vocational school?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's a great question. The kids are our future, and we have to invest in education. I'm very concerned what we're doing at the state level. First of all, how we treat our teachers. There are teachers, there's a Hope, I met Hope in Versailles. She has to work 3 jobs to make ends meet. She's still paying off her master's degree. The master's degree that we told her she had to get to teach, and now she's saddled with debt, and has to work 3 jobs. This is crazy. This is not the way we should be doing things in America. So what would I do? We have to invest more in Pell Grants. We can't be cutting them. We have to invest more in higher education. The reason your college education and the higher education tuition has gone up is because we have divested at the public level. At the K through 12 level, we need to make sure at the federal level that we continue our programs for special ed and all of the things that we have done in the past to help states and helps kids in regions of states that are less fortunate. And so that's one of the things I want to do. I'm going to be a strong advocate for that. I'm going to stand up to people like Betsy DeVos, who want to help the for-profit colleges that hurt students, that are basically defrauding our veterans, So those are just some of the things that I want to do. But education to me is very, very important. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Brenton Epperson from Stanton,
Brent?
Kentucky. I'd like to know what policies, federal policies, you would sponsor or support to help reduce opioid dependence.
Yeah. Thanks, Brent. The opioid crisis is absolutely critical, and it's crushing us. And not only in terms of lives lost, but in terms of economically as well. You know, the opioid crisis in America is costing us something like $500 billion and thousands of lives. What we're doing right now is Band-Aid fixes. And so here's the problem. In America, we have overcome public health crises in the past. We overcame polio and HIV/AIDS. We overcame polio in the 1950s and 40s. HIV/AIDS mitigated it in the 1980s. How did we do that? How did we do that? We did it with massive federal investment in science and in prevention and in education. And guess what? HIV/AIDS, how did we do that in the 80s and 90s? That was a Republican president that did that, because they understood this was a public health crisis. And that is the function. It's a function of government, as the federal government. We're not doing that right now with the opioid crisis. We're doing Band-Aid fixes. We're doing vouchers for recovering addicts by meanwhile taking for housing. Well, that's great, but it's a Band-Aid fix. We have to invest more. When I go to treatment centers and I talk to the folks who run these treatment centers, they're like, it's just a matter of funding. We can do more. We can have more treatment centers with not enough beds. Folks, we're not going to lock ourselves out of this. If you go to Winchester, you go to the jail out in Clark County, for example, you know, I'll talk to the mayor out there. He'll say 90% of the folks in the jail, you know, have some sort of drug problem. We can't just lock them up and expect it to go away. We have to have treatment and prevention. So it does come down to investment in that, and investment in the things that work. And there are things that work. We just have to fund them. All right? Thank you for the question.
Who's next?
Sean Quigley, Lexington, Kentucky. Ma'am, thank you again for your service.
Appreciate it.
Everyone in this room has heard the attack ads ad nauseum. But if you don't mind, will you clarify your position on abortion for us?
Sure. I am pro-choice. I do believe this is a personal liberty issue, that government should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. That said, I am a reasonable person. I'm a Catholic. I'm a mother of 3 small kids. The idea that I would somehow be for 9-month abortions, first of all, it's false. I've said it was false from the start, and it's frankly offensive. Nobody's for that. It's sort of a ridiculous scenario. And I believe our laws are restrictive enough in our country already. They're reasonable. I think our laws are reasonable. And in addition, you know, the conservative Roberts Supreme Court has upheld women's reproductive rights. And so I just think that we should not, I'm tired of Congressman Barr and these Republicans trying to criminalize, you know, the basic right to choose. I'm just tired of it.
Because I do think context matters. Most people have probably heard the ad that was referring to. Is there a context to how that statement was made?
The context was, no one was ever dream of that scenario. It's called a C-section. Okay? I mean, seriously, that's the context. Look, I mean, you throw a bunch of crazy scenarios at somebody, I was just in shock that you would even ask that. So I think that's the context. And folks, if you ever want to run for office, I'll talk to you, because, you know, everything that you say can be spliced and diced, and that's why most politicians don't say anything. But there's your context. It's a crazy scenario, and frankly, it's offensive that he keeps running that ad. And I'll tell you this, it's one of the reasons I'm running. I am tired of the lies. And it happens on both sides, okay? It happens on both sides with many politicians. But that's why I'm not running negative ads, because I'm going to be different. I'm tired of these lies, and it's what's wrong with politics. It makes people want to tune out and not believe anybody. So,
who's next?
Hi, my name is Ashley King, and I'm a student at Transylvania University. I'd like to thank Hey Kentucky for sponsoring this town hall. It's wonderful, and thank you so much for coming out.
Of course.
But my question has to do with out-of-state money funding campaigns. I wanted to ask about your position, and do you believe that out-of-state money has a place in local elections?
Well, thank you for the question, Ashley. You know, I am super proud of my campaign and the fact that we have been able to raise enough money to compete. And as I said earlier, 90% of my donations come from people. And 90% are $50 or less. And most of my donations are from people. And so the thing about it is you know, I'm going up against a congressman who gets, you know, 97% of his money from special interests and the wealthiest 1%. And I think that's a great contrast. Folks, I get money from people all around the country and here in Kentucky. But I'll tell you what, I believe I have probably way more donors from Kentucky than Congressman Barr does. Because, you know, my donors are lots of different types of people, but they're not always the wealthiest 1%. And I do get money from people all around the country, and you know what, that's okay. Because that veteran in Iowa that's giving me $50 towards this campaign, he's not handing me draft legislation at the same time. He just wants better government. It is about Kentucky, but it is also, folks, about our country. And so that's why people from around the country care. They care about all of these elections, and that's why people in Kentucky care too. And I'm super proud of how we've been able to raise money for this campaign. Thank you.
All right, this will be our final question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laura Harkey. I'm a teacher in Kentucky. And before I address my question, I just want to thank you for your position on the opioid crisis. My brother died from heroin, so thank you for that. Which leads me into my question. Teachers in Kentucky are not eligible for Social Security, which can be addressed at the federal level.
Yes.
Do you have thoughts on how to help us with that?
Yes. Thank you for your question, and I am so sorry for your loss. This issue of opioid, it affects, I mean, there isn't probably anybody here that isn't affected some way or in shape or form. With regards to the teachers, what we need to do at the federal level is close the Social Security loophole for death benefits. That should have been done yesterday. It's a fairness issue for me. It's in the weeds, but Kentucky teachers know what I'm talking about. If you're married to somebody who is not a teacher, and that particular person, say it's a he gets works at Toyota for years, puts into Social Security, you both retire. You're a Kentucky teacher, you both retire, and unfortunately, after retirement, he passes away. Guess what? That Kentucky teacher gets no death benefits, none. Now, if he were married to an investment banker, say you were an investment banker, you were a millionaire, you would get his death benefits. But because you're a Kentucky teacher, you don't get anything. It's wrong. And it should have been fixed yesterday, and that's one of the first things that I'm going to do, that I'm going to try to do when I get there. Okay, thank you for the question.
Well, Amy, thank you very much for taking the time. We appreciate it. I want to thank the audience here for coming. I thought the questions were excellent, and I appreciate everybody preparing, and thanks to Transylvania University as well for hosting us. Let's send it right now back to Lee Cruz.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Hey Kentucky Election Coverage 2018. Thanks again to candidate Amy McGrath, and a reminder, we did offer the same opportunity to Congressman Andy Barr. We hope you stay with us throughout this election season as we approach the election next month. Thank you again for watching Hey Kentucky.